Hello, and welcome to another edition of Sutton Impact Family Style. I'm Jason.
And I'm Bill, and I'll start us off with our sport business moment, which kind of relates to the NFL draft because, the NFL's had this debt limit for new stadiums for teams, how much debt they're allowed to go into. And prior to the stadium in LA, the debt limit was $850 million, which is a lot of debt. And that was for the stadium in Atlanta. But now, with this new stadium in LA, they've increased it to almost $2.5 billion for debt.
Wow.
Which means that stadium is going to cost somewhere, all in, the stadium and the development around it, between $4 and $5 billion. And the sport business aspect of it is not only is it going to be one of the most amazing developments ever made if they can figure out how to pay for it, but if the stadium generates the kind of revenue they think it was going to generate, then it will start really pushing the salary cap up pretty high. And for teams like the Bengals and Kansas City and those lower market teams, well, Kansas City's probably a lower market team. The Bengals are a low revenue producing team. The Bucs are probably a low revenue producing team. So those teams are going to have a struggle because the salary cap's going to go pretty high, and they're going to have to figure out how to produce more revenue for themselves to be able to cover their costs.
I see.
But this thing in LA, I saw the model of it. It's like a city within a city. I mean, LA Live is amazing. This is going to be bigger than LA Live. It's going to have hotels, restaurants, apartments, businesses. It's really big. And I've also seen the Star in Dallas, which is incredible. But this thing's going to be a monster.
Well, as long as that money is as long as it's not coming out of taxpayers' dollars, I'm all for it.
Yeah, most of it's not.
Because every
of course, the infrastructure is, the roads and everything, but it's going to be ginormous. I just, Jason, I still am back to the same point I've always been at. I mean, okay, so the Rams and Chargers both look like they're going to have pretty good football teams this year.
Yes.
So we'll have to see. I mean, the Chargers couldn't fill the soccer stadium last year for 30,000 people.
No. Well, I mean, I know I'm not alone here. I would never have season tickets. I mean, as much as I love the Steelers, I'd love to have a direct TV all-in pass and all the sorts of stuff, but, I like football better on TV. I'd go to, one game a year live just to bring it in, but I still don't want to drive there. I still want to park there, and I still don't want to pay money to watch a Jumbotron, which is what I have to do when I'm at a stadium, no matter how good my seats are. Because, I need to see, it's a game of inches, and I need to see all the little tiny intricacies. So, I don't know.
Well, I'm probably going to go to the Steelers-Bucks game on Monday night this year.
Okay.
Just because it's here. And it's a night game. So I won't be roasting. So I'll probably think about doing that.
Yeah. And like I said, last year I went to the Saints game where they're in the Steelers bye week. And it was exciting to, the Saints were a really good team last year. The stadium was hopping. It was fun, but I've done it now. I like it as a TV sport.
Well, so let's spend our time on our draft this week.
Yes.
Let's make it our NFL draft themed episode. All right, since you and I talked, that I'm ecstatic.
Correct.
I'm just loving life because two of my favorite college players, Mason Rudolph and James Washington, are now Steelers. I couldn't be happier about that.
Mm-hmm.
On the other side, I'm a little disappointed we didn't get a linebacker.
Well, it sounds like they drafted two safeties who were both almost the same size as Shazier. Because Shazier barely weighed 230, and both these safeties are close to 220. And they both played some dime sub-linebacker packages, and it seems like they figured the value was more with the safety they could cover tight ends and be a sub-package linebacker, as opposed to just picking somebody and pushing them in.
That's what kind of I decided. So maybe we're going to revolutionize and be a 3-2-6 team, right?
Well, that's what New England plays a lot of. There's a number of teams that are doing that now. I think, because Dwayne Buchanan, who was the Cardinal safety, he's one of those bigger downhill safeties, and they played him at linebacker for the most part. I mean, I think he was listed as a safety, but he played in the box and covered sideline to sideline. This will be my one Steeler take. I love the James Washington pick because I think he's he can come in and do everything Martavis Bryant did with probably less attitude. And he's going to be cheaper, and you know,
And he'll know the plays.
he'll know the plays, which apparently Martavis Bryant doesn't know. So,
And Ben will have confidence in him. Which
yes,
obviously, you know, this Martavis Bryant trade doesn't get made without Ben Roethlisberger's approval.
no, I don't think that it does.
So,
but
I think Ben was tired of Martavis and the shenanigans.
But as far as the other picks go, I still feel like if you're the Steelers, you have to be all in on players that can help contribute now. And I don't see any of these players outside of James Washington really contributing in their first year. I hope Terrell Edmonds proves me wrong. But I know the tackle is a project. I know Mason Rudolph won't see this.
Tackle sounds like a big project. It sounds like he didn't play up to par, and he wasn't playing at Power 5 level.
No, but he's, I guess, a giant and a mauler and incredibly, and again, we have one of the best offensive line coaches in football. So
yeah, when they made the pick, I was a little surprised, but then I figured, you know what, that's the guy that made that pick. And if he thinks he can work with this guy and make him better, then who am I not to believe that, right?
right. And I know the Steelers technically
love the
don't.
running back they picked up.
You do?
Yeah. Because he's not just a running back. He's like a running back receiver, and he played tight end.
I know.
I mean, he's really an interesting player. I liked him a lot. I didn't know anything about him until they showed all the highlights and everything, but I really, really liked him.
Right. I just figured though with Rosie Nix, Bell, McDonald, James, I mean, I wonder how much is he going to get on the field? I just feel like, again, maybe there weren't players that could contribute this year, but I don't know. We'll see. I mean,
you can split this guy and he can play in the slot and he can play a lot of spots, so we'll see where they play him.
very true.
Now, my only disappointment with the Steelers draft is I really wanted Shaquem Griffin to be a Steeler.
I did too, but I was really happy to see him end up with his twin brother in Seattle.
And I was happy to see him end up with his twin brother. I was very happy to see that. I was very happy that he wasn't a free agent. I was very happy he got drafted.
And I was very happy he wasn't a Patriot. I say that about almost every player in the draft, but I do.
Yeah, I have to admit, every time the Patriots came up, and I was thinking, are they going to take Mason Rudolph? Are they going to take James Washington? It was just killing me. I could not imagine having to hate one of my Oklahoma State guys. It's going to kill me, but I would have hated him.
And I really do think Shaq Griffin's going to be a really good player.
I do too. I wish him all the best. I hope he's a great player. So what do you think about Baker Mayfield being number one pick?
I think if you're in the position the Browns are in, if he's the guy you believe, you do have to sort of tell everybody to shut up, like this is the guy we're taking, period. And, I liked him at Oklahoma. I think I mentioned him on the show a number of times. Like, I like his moxie and his attitude.
Yeah.
I think, as I said before, like, I thought Lamar Jackson, had the most upside of all the quarterbacks in the draft, and he was my favorite. I could see, like I said, I told you, I think we talked before the draft, I could see this being a draft where every quarterback is kind of a disappointment and a bust.
Josh Rosen sure had some attitude.
He did. I like that attitude.
He had attitude on the night of the draft and a little bit less attitude, but still calling people out. He better be able to back it up.
Well, they say he is the most polished player in the draft. They just said that he had the highest floor with the lowest ceiling of all the first-round quarterbacks.
And he would have been my fifth pick of the five quarterbacks that went in the first round. He'd have been five for me.
I think even despite the terrible tweets that Josh Allen had put out that oddly surfaced not 6 months before the draft or any time in between that time, but literally the night of the draft, which is odd timing to say the least. It doesn't, obviously take away from what he did and what he said in those tweets, but it's weird that it would come out at that point.
I think he still ends up the same place, Jake. I still think he was going to be a Buffalo quarterback.
I think so too, but I mean, I the more we looked at, I read about his stats from high school through college, like outside of the giant arm, which he clearly has, he never put up really good numbers, even playing at a tiny school, football-wise is what I mean to say. I didn't mean to disparage the school as an academic institution, but as far as a football program. And you would think if you're that good and you're playing in that, if you're an NFL quarterback playing on that level, there'd be a few games where you just ripped it up, and he never did. So that would be a concern with him.
Yeah, I agree.
And
he'd have been my fourth quarterback.
Yeah.
He'd have been my third quarterback.
I also found him to be the least impressive whenever they had him speak. He came off like, I'm trying to think of the kindest way to say this, I guess sort of a meathead, as opposed to a leader of men or a core, you know? And again, that's based on a few small interview sizes, but he doesn't come off as, you know, the brightest bulb in the shed, or whatever you want to call it.
No, not at all.
And I don't want that in my quarterback. I don't want that in any of my NFL players, but especially not my quarterback.
I would have probably went with Sam Darnold. I'd probably went with him, my number one pick. Even though I wasn't sold on, I would have probably taken the least risk if I'm Cleveland. If I was another team, I might have taken more risk. But Cleveland, whenever they can put that stat up there and roll those names and show the 30 guys that play quarterback, you know, you start guessing from that moment on.
Right, but if they,
the talking heads obviously were shocked by the pick.
They were, and as people said, it makes the Jets trade look much more palatable because you gave up a first in 3 seconds to move up 3 spots in the draft, and technically,
the guy you wanted after all over anyway.
Right, and a guy you probably didn't think you had any shot at. You thought you were getting a Mayfield or a Darnold or but you got Darnold at 3. And again, time will pay out. Like if Sam Darnold turns out great, then that Colts trade will be worth every pick.
Well, I got to say, I think Saquon Barkley is going to be all he's billed to be and more. So I'd have definitely taken him with the number 2 pick. Even though I saw some criticism for taking a running back there, he is a beast.
I think I think we talked about this maybe a little bit last week. I don't know if we did it on the phone or in person, but like the running back thing isn't so much about how much a running back can help a team, but it's how much you can help a team buy a second contract. And if you're picking in the top 5 or top 10, you're probably not going to be in a position to contend until you the running back second contract, more than likely. So,
probably not. But it'd be curious. Now, one other thing I want to talk to you about, because I know you had to love it. Akers talking to smack to the Dallas fans.
Oh, I mean, I would say I watched the draft. You know, I had other things on the TV, but I had the draft on the side. And I hate to say it, but I feel like I almost wanted the Twitterification of the draft. Like, I just wanted the picks and the analysts of the picks.
I know, it was so drawn out. It really was. And he kept dragging other people up on stage. But I thought you liked all the shit talking. I mean, he really talked some smack.
He did, which was fine. But like I said, I'm there for business. I want to see who's getting picked, and I want to hear why they're good or you think they're not good. I don't think, reportedly they drowned out a lot of Roger Goodell boos again. And it had me wondering if the guys he was high-fiving as he went to the thing were plants from the NFL to give him somebody to look like people liked him. I don't know.
When he walked out with Roger Staubach, Troy Aikman, and Drew Pearson were the 3 he walked out with.
Yeah, in Dallas.
And they still boo. That tells me how much they hate him. And I know they hate him in Dallas more than anywhere else because they thought, he's responsible for the Zeke Elliott decision. And of course he was, but they're going to hold that against him for forever. They'll hold that against his ghost.
Which again is why I think those guys on the runway up there that he was high-fiving were plants. I don't think people in Dallas would be that excited to high-five Roger Goodell.
No, I don't think so. Maybe his relatives.
Maybe. And I'm sure the people in Dallas were cool with it, but watching Jerry Jones just sit there and stare when his pick was clear, we already knew his pick was kind of annoying too.
Jerry was looking a little old. He was looking a little old in that room, I thought.
Yeah. Well, he is a little old. Now, I've had some time to reflect and to read some extra thoughts about this, but we, as Steeler fans, got something in the draft. We get to watch Ryan Shazier walk up to the podium, which, initially I just thought that's awesome. I felt the joy that everybody else felt, and then, as time set in, it was kind of disturbing in a way, I guess.
Because when I watched him walk, I realized that he might be able to walk better than that, but that's as good as it's going to get.
Which obviously, just as a selfish football fan, that's horrible to see. But I also wonder, here's a night where you're bringing in a bunch of new cannon fodder for the NFL, and here's a guy that is 25 years old, and on and he can barely walk, and you're sort of putting him out there like, yeah, this is this great moment. Which again, for him, I'm so happy to see him, hopefully able to walk and lead a normal life, maybe not a football life again. But
like we talked the other night, it was really a mixed bag for us.
Yeah.
It was really, and it was emotionally uplifting because he's definitely making progress.
Without a doubt.
And it was disturbing to see that he still has so far to go, and he might never get there. He might never be able to walk without, that shaking and staggering. But I mean, it's only been 4 or 5 months.
Right. It's just
he's been working hard, but I mean, and I hope to God I'm wrong, but I hope that he gets a better life out of it than that.
Yeah, and like I said, as the night we're watching new young men who, odds are 1 or 2 of those is going to be living a much worse life based on playing football. And here's your example walking out to the podium. It was kind of it was weird.
And that's why I say, of all the sports, whatever these guys want to get paid, they should get paid. Because there's too much at risk.
And football contracts should be guaranteed, period.
They should be guaranteed, and everybody should have this definitely guaranteed catastrophic life insurance policy for every one of them.
And I would assume lifelong health insurance, because they don't get that either. Do they get lifelong health insurance?
And they get some health insurance. Depends how many years they play, I think.
I think they should get lifelong health insurance.
Yeah. But it's sad.
It's very sad. Now,
any other NFL observations you want to make?
Well, I guess I would say I do feel like the Browns, throughout the offseason, the Browns have had a great offseason. And I think even with Tyrod Taylor...
They got some credibility. They got rid of a lot of guys that couldn't play. And they made some really good draft picks.
Right, and they had some nice free agents. And despite the fact that I saw a lot of criticism of the Jarvis Landry contract, he has over 400 catches over the last 4 years. He has over 40 touchdowns. And maybe part of the reason he was never getting, big chunks of yardage is he was, going over the middle on a team that had nobody outside of a threat. But I didn't think that was a bad signing. I don't like the fact that he's on the Browns.
No, and they had a lot of money they needed to spend.
Right. And if you have a young quarterback coming in, a guy like that is a great guy to have.
Yeah, no question.
So they would be I was also just trying to think in my head, and I'll ask you this question out loud, and we can both come up with an answer. Do you think any team significantly change their fortunes for next year? I know with the draft, typically not, but right now, like when you look at who was in the playoffs last year, is there anybody you see making a huge push just based on last night? Or the last weekend, I should say, not last night. I think Green Bay added some nice defensive players. And they obviously get Rodgers back, which will be the biggest thing for them.
No, the teams that are going to improve were the teams that signed free, like the Vikings making their signing and Denver signing, Case Keenum, all those signings. Those were the things that are going to change your fortunes. One of these guys will emerge, though, just like your boy Alvin Kamara. One of these guys will emerge and impact it. It's just a question of who and when.
Right, like Kamara, Kareem Hunt, those guys, someone will pop up.
Yeah, somebody will be there. Now, is Saquon Barkley going to help the Giants get in the playoffs? No. They'll be better, but they won't get in the playoffs.
Going into right now, they still have...
It's not going to put the Browns in the playoffs, but is he going to be able to signal a new day in Cleveland? Maybe. We'll see, because they open with the Steelers.
And then I guess my last draft shot of the night, which is sort of... Considering we talked to draft last year, and we were both very excited about a certain player in the 4th round out of Tennessee named Josh Dobbs.
Yes.
In the last 3 months, we've watched Kevin Colbert forget his name, who was the GM that drafted him. And the Steelers spend a 3rd-round pick on another quarterback this year. And granted, you could argue that the value was simply too high to give up. But you got to figure, if Josh Dobbs was the player that you and I had hoped he had been, if he had shown something his rookie season, after being a 4th-round pick last year, who they traded a pick to move up to get, they probably aren't taking Mason Rudolph this year. So, I guess a sad goodbye to Josh Dobbs. And it just shows you the draft, Last year, I was excited about Josh Dobbs, the future quarterback of the Pittsburgh Steelers. Within a year, the GM had already forgotten his name, and they picked a guy in the 3rd round who's probably going to take his roster spot.
They traded up to get the guy in the 3rd round.
Yeah. But they traded up in the 4th round to get Dobbs last year, so.
Yeah.
You never know. But
it's fun. So now there'll be some quiet NFL. The NFL should probably be quiet through the NBA playoffs.
It's true, but I mean, after the draft, we still got guys like Des Bryant hanging out there now looking for a team. Um, up until spring and cuts and rumors and
Yeah, but it won't be as front and center as it's been the last week.
no, I think the
He'll
NBA.
still be out there. It won't be as front and center.
I think the NBA and the NHL will pop to the front.
Yeah.
Because the NHL playoffs have been fantastic again this year. I do think after watching what Vegas did this year, I mean, I don't know if the team in Seattle and wherever else they put in that second expansion team would want this, but they need to curb back those rules a little bit because I think they made while Vegas fans don't want to hear this because I've read a lot of their stuff online and they're whiny and I already dislike them as a fan base. They seem to think that they're a scrappy team built out of the scraps of other teams. When they were able to choose
Mark Andrew Fleury wasn't a scrap.
No, they were able to choose the top second line guys on every NHL team in the league. So, I mean, not normally. It used to be in the draft, you would get third and fourth liners. You're getting second liners from every team in the NHL, and then to keep from taking some of those second liners, you got. I mean, and again, not to say their GM did a bad job, but they're praising him like he's the greatest guy ever. But it's like, in order for those teams to keep just their first line and a couple of their other players, they also had to give you guys first round and second round picks to take different players from that team. So it just, I mean, the fact that they're a cup contender and the favorite cup contender right now just shows you that they went a little bit too far in the process. Like, you don't want to cripple a team. Maybe this is the best way to build a fan base, though, is to make them an instant contender. I don't know.
And maybe that's why. So we'll see if they do in Seattle. Because Seattle's never had hockey, so we'll see what they do.
Yeah. But I suppose if you're moving to a city...
You still have hockey teams in some crummy markets.
Yeah.
And Phoenix, Miami, Dallas, those are not great hockey markets.
In Vegas is sort of a new market, so I guess by making them an instant contender, which the NHL had to know they were doing that by the way they set up that system.
Sure. But then they also got to be the first team in the market.
Yeah, and I would say they're also
anytime you're the only team in the market, you bring the fan base together.
Yeah.
It becomes a really big thing.
Exactly. But I just had to...
Well, I switched to the NBA and I watched my Oklahoma City Thunder meltdown.
Yeah.
I'm sure Melo's not part of it. He said he doesn't want to be coming off the bench. He sucks. He shouldn't be on. He shouldn't start. So hopefully he'll exercise his option, get a buyout, and go somewhere else.
I think a buyout's his only option because it's hard to walk away from the $27 million he's owed by Oklahoma City next year. Because no one's going to give him anywhere near that. I mean, we're in one of those weird flux years in the NBA where people are going to be paid less this year based on the cap. And he's Carmelo Anthony, and he's, 35, and, he doesn't really fit.
And not that good.
And not that good. And he hasn't been that good for a couple years now, so.
No. Well, I'm hoping Oklahoma City does a rebuild. I just don't. I love the team. I don't like how it's made up.
Now, just because you and I have been so pro-Russ over the years since he's been there.
It was a tough game to watch Russ play that last game.
He put up almost...
It's a tough series for him. It's a tough series to watch Russ play.
Because even the games that he won and he played well, he put up over 40 shots in 3 of those games. So his scoring efficiency was simply not there.
No. And it came down to the same thing we said all along. I mean, there was 3 great players, or 3 pretty good players, versus a team with a couple good players. And it showed up. That's the way it played out.
Yeah, and I know that chess-wise, like, what the Jazz do against what the Thunder do, as we've learned in other sports too. Like, sometimes rock always beats, rock beats scissors. And this was one of those matchups with, Gobert.
Tough. They were never gonna be. Yeah.
No, but you got to wonder, like, moving forward, if you're the Thunder, Paul George is probably out of there. Whether you won this round or not, he probably was going to go back to LA or go somewhere else.
Because Pete definitely isn't for playoffs.
Yeah, and he was inconsistent too, like he's always been through that entire career.
Yeah.
And then best case scenario, Carmelo either decides not to exercise a ridiculously huge option, which I can't imagine his wife will let him do, because that's too much money to walk away from. But maybe he's a mid-season buyout, and you eat $15 million somehow. But so now you've got Russ, you got Steven Adams,
who I love.
You got Andre Roberson coming back, who was much more effective with Paul George there to be the other second defender on offense. But, I mean, What are you moving forward with that team? Because you've also given away a lot of your first round picks for the next year, couple years too.
Yeah, you're having to rebuild. You're having to sign some free agents, see what you can do.
Right, and I mean, you saw that Kevin Durant tweeted or liked tweets, the anti-Russ tweets, right?
Yeah.
Now, in that,
I'm not a big KD fan. I just don't like him as a person.
no, I don't like anyone that has fake Twitter accounts so we can argue with fans about how great he really is. But, for him to blame Russ for their failures, I remember, like, they both played hero ball down the stretch and they both missed shots constantly in those games. It was like Russ took a shot, KD took a shot, and neither of them came up big. Neither was afraid to take those shots, but yeah. I'm not a big... It sucks 'cause I really used to love KD, but the fake Twitter account thing bothered me quite a bit. And sort of the passive-aggressive Russ stuff. I don't really hate him for going to Golden State. I love the city of San Francisco, and it's fun to play with people that are good.
So let's reshuffle the deck. What do you see going on right now in the playoffs, NBA?
Well, I mean, we have our inevitable Golden State-Houston clash.
Yes.
Both my bias against...
You're telling me offline that you still think Golden State's going to do it, and I told you I think Houston's going to come through.
Draymond looks like he's finally woken up.
Yeah,
and
I don't doubt it.
I have to assume, given what we've been told, and supposedly he's practicing again, that we're going to see. I mean, even right now, I think today's game helped a lot. Where you blow out, or last night's game, you blow out the Pelicans by 30. I think now Steph can take a little bit of time off. Like back to hockey, the Penguins beat the Capitals on the road, which meant Malkin and Hagelin could take another couple days off. And
what happened today?
They're losing 3-1 right now, but they were losing 2-0 in the third and won 3-2 last time. So
yeah, that's true. That's true.
And it's Penguins Capitals. It's going 7. So it's but this was a nice you went and you stole game 1 on the road, which is all you really want to do.
Yeah.
So I see Golden State, Houston, and then in the East, it's just I don't know. I don't.
I think Philadelphia.
I mean, I think Philadelphia, yeah. But the real question is, let's say Philadelphia is healthy and they end up in the finals. Can this team do anything against Houston or Golden State?
No. But I think whoever wins. I think Philadelphia's too young to play with. I think Philadelphia's very talented, but very young. I don't think they'd play well in the finals for the first time. Anybody else isn't as talented as Philadelphia, and they're going to get blown out in the finals.
Yeah, Boston, I mean, if Brad Stevens hasn't proved he was the greatest coach on earth, I don't know what else does. He keeps losing player after player, and he keeps making that team win somehow.
Yeah, I know. It's pretty incredible. I really like the guy. I like Boston. I think they're playing with a lot of heart, not a lot of talent.
No.
And Al Horford had an amazing game. Marcus Smart played well. I mean, I like the team. So we'll see how this next round goes.
And all credit due to the Indiana Pacers. They had a great series. But
yeah, they did. Victor Oladipo should get a bunch of people fired at the Magic. That's what I think.
They should, but I mean, people, he's obviously winning Most Improved Player this year, maybe first team All-NBA. But he admits that in between his Oklahoma City season and his Indiana season, he changed his diet and he worked out a lot harder. And as much as people want to, and I'll give you the one pro Russ sentiment of the day here. As much as people want to take saying that Russ doesn't make people better, maybe Victor Oladipo watched how hard Russ plays, how hard Russ works, and maybe that inspired him to get in better shape in the offseason.
Yeah, maybe so.
At the very least, he changed a lot of what he did before he got there. But you have to understand, if you're the Magic and you're looking around these playoffs,
and you see all these guys that were on your roster.
Right. I mean, I don't know what the excuse is there. Because, it's been multiple GMs, multiple coaches. It's just been a mess every single time.
I know.
And again, if you look at where they're probably going to pick in this draft, it's the worst draft for them. Because they already have Aaron Gordon, assuming they re-sign him. They just drafted Jonathan Isaacs. They're stuck with Biyombo. They still have Vucevic. And it looks like most of the guys that are going to be around when they're going to be bigs.
What are they picking, 5, probably?
I think around 5, yeah. And the value at 5 is going to be probably a big guy or, and again, nothing about the kid from Villanova, the 3-and-D sort of forward guy who they could use. But he doesn't seem like he's the 5th pick in the draft. To me.
Yeah.
Like if I'm a team that just missed out and I'm getting that guy, I'm pretty excited. I missed the playoffs. and I'm getting them late in the lottery, I feel like I got somebody that can come in and play. But if I'm looking for somebody to be the next star of my team, I don't think that's him. So.
Okay, so switch back to NHL playoffs. Who's going to make the finals in the NHL?
Well, I'm biased, of course, so I'm saying Penguins. And I think Vegas. I think Fleury will be back in Pittsburgh for a couple games.
It was strange for me to watch this, these matchups like the Penguins and Washington. It just seems like the Penguins are Washington's kryptonite. And then the Bruins and the Lightning play well against everybody but the Bruins.
Yeah.
So both of those things are interesting to me. Is it time? Is the odds going to pay off that that Washington beat the Penguins just because they haven't done it for so long? It's hard to say where it's going to get. It's harder for me to pick that stuff.
Yeah.
I don't follow it as closely, but it's harder for me to pick it. But do you think Las Vegas got a job last night on that call?
A little bit. I always think it's tough to blame one call for anything. I mean, there's a play every second.
Call that takes away a goal, though.
Yeah.
It takes away. It's a call that would have ended the game if it's not made.
It's true.
And so you walk away, you're up 2-0 rather than 1-1, right?
Yeah.
That's big.
It's very
That's
big.
a big call.
I know Vegas.
Made that call.
I think Vegas has. I think when the changes every day, but I think Vegas has Vegas as the number one overall. But I mean, maybe they're getting a lot of action on Vegas too, just based on proximity.
Yeah.
People that can gamble.
I don't think I make the call.
No, probably not.
And then as a Pittsburgh fan, I watched my first Pirate game from start to finish of the year today.
Are you back on?
Which is sad considering now I'm not back in the bandwagon yet. But considering it's almost May and I watched my first one start to finish. And I've watched more Angels games starts to finish than I had Pirate games. But today, Nick Kingham was going to start for the Pirates, who's been a very heralded prospect. And he threw 6 2/3 perfect innings, a perfect game. Gave up one hit, finished the inning, brought 2 relievers, they won 5-0. He looked really, really good. So, still not, it's not as important in my life right now as it was like the last couple of years where I want to watch every game. I don't want to watch every game now. I want to do other things. So, Kutch not being there, Garrett Cole not being there, not having a realistic, I just don't agree with the owner. I don't like these decisions that have been made, so I'm just not all in. In fact, I'm all in on baseball. I mean, I'll watch the Angels now when it's convenient. I'll see them play the Yankees twice when I'm in New York. But I'm just, this whole thing's affected me so much. I'm not even as much of a baseball fan as I was.
Which is pretty crazy.
It's really crazy.
I mean,
consider for 58 years I loved the Pirates.
And
you would crazy.
Yeah, we'd be at the beach. You'd have your iPad out watching the game. Whatever you could do,
Or I'd have headphones on, listen to radio on the beach. Yeah.
Yeah.
Not now.
No, that says a lot.
Not now. Okay, so we can talk about my food moment. Was amazing in La Crosse, Wisconsin. I went to a restaurant called the Freight House, and I had the engineers cut a prime rib on Tuesday night and again on Thursday night.
Oh wow!
And they made me go back there on Thursday night because I didn't take a picture of it, so I did Thursday night. And it said it was 20 ounces of prime rib, okay, which is a big prime rib.
It's a huge
without
prime rib,
bone, right? 20 ounces of meat, no bone. And I guarantee you it wasn't 20 ounces. I guarantee it had to be at least 32 ounces.
Oh wow!
And I ate 2/3 of it both times. I didn't come anywhere close to finishing.
Wow. That's a mighty big piece of meat. I unfortunately don't have any food moments again, at least no new ones. So, I don't know what you can do. It looks like we lost our call. So I will sign out. That was the end of our food moment. It ended somewhat abruptly, but my dad said it was delicious. Please tune in next week. Tell your friends, tell your family. And we'll have more NHL playoffs, more NFL playoffs, and maybe NBA playoffs on NFL as NFL is over. So until next week, thank you.